Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. I am Scott Reynolds, and alongside me today is Bailey Adams joining the program. We're going to be talking about the Bucs money man, Antoine Winfield Jr. Just got back from One Buccaneer Place, the team's headquarters over there at the Advent Health Training Center, where we attended an Antoine Winfield Jr. Jason Light press conference. We'll have some raw clips from that. Not much time to edit. We just had that press conference about an hour ago. But we'll be talking about that today. And, of course, doing a roll call today at 4:20. That's the best part about Mondays, is always joining a live show and doing roll call. That's where we get to find out where you Pewter people are watching and listening to the program from. And we're also going to be talking about the Bucs schedule a little bit. Get Bailey Adams' take on that. That'll be our rant today, the Pewter Report rant at 4:20 during roll call. So let me bring in Bailey Adams here today to join us. We haven't done a show in a long time, Bailey. So I'm looking forward to this. This is a good time for us to talk a little Antoine Winfield Jr. before we attend tomorrow's Bucs OTA, which will be a fun endeavor. That starts tomorrow at 10:35. So tomorrow's show, believe it or not, is going to be talking about the Bucs OTA. Myself and you and our own Adam Slavan will be out there. And so make sure that you join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock for our Bucs OTA practice analysis. That'll be the very first time we'll get a chance to look at some of the Buccaneer players. We've heard a lot about Vita Vea losing some weight, Bailey, and we're going to check out Cody Mauch's transformation in the weight room and see if he's lost some weight, or I should say put on some weight, as Vita's lost some. And so we're looking forward to that. But today's topic is the Bucs money man, Antoine Winfield Jr. So you had a chance to listen to the press conference. Some of your initial thoughts on what Winfield had to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's always an exciting day, I think, whenever you see some of the Bucs. You know, it was exciting when Baker, I don't want to say it wasn't exciting when they re-signed Baker and he had his press conference. When you see some of these guys that are their own, the Bucs own players they drafted and have developed over the years. And, you know, we've gotten to see them over the last few years, you know, grow up from fresh out of college into, you know, full-fledged NFL players. And Antoine Winfield's one of those guys. And it was just exciting to listen to him, you know, how grateful he was and all the thank yous he started with. And I think it was about 2 minutes, his opening statement, of just thanking people. And then he, you know, finished that statement by saying his best football is still ahead of him. And just hearing the hunger still in his voice. And I'm not surprised because it's him and it's because of the kind of players that the Bucs draft. But it was just cool to hear him talk about how this money's not changing him. And he still has that drive and he wants to go win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, you know, Antoine Winfield Jr. is not the most scintillating quote in terms of his press conferences or plus availabilities. It's, it was good to kind of hear him speak at length about a couple of things. There were a lot of different topics that he touched on. We've got a couple of clips that will start today's show and play a little bit of that in just a second here. But, you know, let's take a look at where Antoine Winfield Jr. ranks now in terms of, we know he's the highest paid defensive back, so we'll start there. But it's a little maybe surprising when you look at the highest paid defensive back salary that a safety is atop that list, Bailey. I mean, $21.025 million for Winfield. The next 7 guys, Jair Alexander at $21 million, Denzel Ward at $20.1 million, Jalen Ramsey at $20 million, Marlon Humphrey, the Baltimore corner, at $19.5 million, Trayvon Diggs from Dallas right behind him at $19.4 million. L'Jarius Sneed just got paid in Tennessee, $19.1 million. Jalen Johnson just got paid, the Bears cornerback, $19 million. And, of course, that's tied with the next safety on the list, Derwin James, at $19 million. Does it surprise you that Winfield came in as not just the highest paid safety, but the highest paid defensive back?
I don't know that it does. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, maybe a little bit, but I don't know that it really does when you kind of take a further look at his role in Todd Bowles' defense and just how versatile he is and, you know, the kind of playmaker he is and what he means to that defense. It's not as surprising when you take all of that into account. And I thought it was kind of funny that during the press conference today, I think might have been Jason was asked about making him the highest paid defensive back, not just the highest paid safety. And he had said, it wasn't a big ask. And one of those things is, you know, when you have a guy who's been the kind of teammate, the kind of player he's been over the last few years, you're happy to do good things for these great people. So I think it took him just over. And I don't know, it had to have been a concerted effort, right? Because 21.25 over that 21 million. It's just that little extra nudge over to make him the highest paid DB. But I would say he fully deserves it.
Yeah, he does. And I think Jason Light said, you like to do good things for great people. And when you look at it really wasn't that much of a jump, right, to get over that $19 million that would have made Winfield the highest paid safety. You can say 19 and a half, 20, whatever, but then you're only talking just another over $1 million, right? So it really wasn't that much of a leap. And I think that's kind of important to for future Buccaneers that may be coming free agency or that are looking for a contract. And Devin White notwithstanding, because he didn't really have an appreciation for what the team wanted him to do. But if you're a good guy, if you're a team first player, if he was in a contract year last year, that's what people forget. It's all eyes were on Devin White and his 5th-year option, but Winfield was in the contract year also. He didn't have the 5th-year option as a 2nd-round pick, but he did all the right things, right? He went out and balled out in the contract year, didn't worry about it, didn't gripe, didn't hold out, didn't start liking Eagles tweets and all of the like. He went out and played ball, and he got rewarded for playing ball. And just a huge dichotomy, and I've said it a couple times last year. Antoine Winfield Jr. was putting on the clinic for this is how you play in a contract year, and Devin White failed to show up for that clinic.
Yeah, there was that dichotomy, and I think there was almost a similarity between what Antoine did and what Mike Evans did. Because Mike Evans, once the regular season started, he said, all right, we're not talking contracts anymore. We didn't get anything done, and we're focusing on football. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And he went out and he had one of his best seasons of his career. And I think his best since, a few years ago as far as touchdown productions. And then it just really was, both of those guys in a contract year went out there and earned their contracts. It was, they went out there and said, this is what we're worth. And you're going to be forced to pay us basically, or else you're going to, feel it from the fan base and just from probably the locker room as well, because those guys went out and they earned it. And as far as, production and as far as the teammates they are and the guys that are just essential to the locker room, that was huge to see Antoine do that. And, all pro season, all the takeaways, not even just takeaways, but when those takeaways happened. Yeah. It was always whenever the Bucs needed a big play, it was Antoine Winfield Jr. knocking the ball loose, coming up with a pick to seal the game. Twice at the goal line, knocking the ball into the back of the end zone. I don't know how many times in my whole life I've seen a play like that, and he did it twice in one season. Yes. So yeah, just an unbelievable contract year for him, and now he's seeing the fruits of that. And he was asked today, out of all the spectacular splash plays he made, and I mean, let's just kind of verbally go down the list: 122 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 12 pass breakups. Those are all career highs, by the way. Then you look at 3 interceptions, also a career high, also led the Buccaneers, right? That's a team high. 6 forced fumbles, a career best, a team best, and also led the league last year. Nobody forced more fumbles than Antoine Winfield Jr. Yeah. Then 4 fumble recoveries. That also was a career high and led the team. And he did everything, Bailey, except for a defensive touchdown and a safety. Maybe that's coming this year for the encore. I don't know. But yeah. I mean, I've never seen, especially a defensive back. And I covered every minute of Rondé Barber's career. All right. I mean, I've never seen a defensive player at any position fill out a stat sheet the way that he did, with over 100 tackles, the tackles for loss, the 6 sacks, right? I mean, that was a career best for him. And I mean, it's Rondé Barber-esque, the type of season he had, but I don't know that Rondé had that complete of a season. Maybe the 10 interception season he had in 2001 that kind of set the table for Brian Kelly to have 8 picks the next year because everyone was scared to death to throw to Rondé. I think maybe Derek Brooks' 2002 season when he was defensive MVP, that's probably the closest one. I mean, Sapp had 16 and a half sacks. You look back at the 19 and a half sack, 6 forced fumble season that Shaq Barrett had in 2019. That's only just a couple of categories, right? That's right. Just the sacks and the forced fumbles. That's kind of what outside linebackers, pass rushers are supposed to do. But Winfield's was all across the board, in the secondary, at the line of scrimmage, making tackles, the pass breakups, right? I mean, the Drake London pass breakup in the end zone, right? The touchdown saving tackles, I counted 2 at least, maybe 3,
against Justin Jefferson in week 1, right? Those are
Mhm.
tackles. But if you go back and look at the film, he saved touchdowns. He was the last line of defense.
Yeah, and I don't know. You talk about filling up the stat sheet. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I think there was a stretch last season where it was early on in the season where you could kind of see it was already shaping up to be a special season for him because he was becoming the first DB to have 3 games in a row or 4 games in a row with a sack, a takeaway, and then maybe a forced fumble. It was something along those lines of kind of having a tally in each of those columns. And he did that on several occasions throughout the season. So, I mean, you could see early on last year, like that Saints game there, you see it right there. And even from week 1 in Minnesota, I mean, he had some huge plays in that game to help them win that game. And I think really set the tone. I know they ended up falling to 4-7, but early on in the season when they were, leading the division at the start of October, which no one really thought they were going to do, I think he helped set the tone for that defense early on.
There's no doubt about it. And let's take a look at Winfield in terms of, we looked at him in terms of the highest paid defensive backs, but now let's look at him with the Buccaneers, right? So you've got Baker Mayfield making $33 million a year, 33 and some change technically. And Winfield is right behind at $21.025 million. Now he's going to get eclipsed, right? Tristan Wirfs, when he gets that new deal in terms of the average annual value, that AAV, it's expected to be north of what Penei Sewell, right, is making. So it's going to surpass Winfield. Wirfs will be the number 2 guy on this list. Winfield will be bumped down to number 3. But if you look at this, it's interesting because Winfield will still be the highest paid defensive player by a lot. I think the next one is Vita Vea on the list, $17.75 million in terms of his average annual value. And you got a couple of receivers there, and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin making over $20 million. And then Jamel Dean comes in at $13 million as the second highest paid DB. But if you look at this list, Winfield is going to be the highest paid defensive player on this team, I think, for some time now. Vita Vea is under contract for, I believe, 3 more years.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this list and both the defense and the offense is he's up there as one of the younger players too, and he's one of the more higher paid players. You'll see Tristan Wirfs again get more money than that and be, again, another one of those young pillars of this team moving forward. Because if you look at the rest of the list, I know Baker's on a 3-year contract, but you have Mike Evans on a 2-year deal, and he might do a year by year after that. Chris Godwin's in the last year of his contract. Vita Vea, as you mentioned, his contract is still a few years away, and you're kind of starting to see the future of whether it's just the leadership or the future like cornerstones of this franchise. I think in Antoine Winfield Jr. and soon to be Tristan Wirfs being up there and being paid like it, and I think that's exciting because again, having those homegrown guys that you drafted in 2020, play their rookie contracts out and play as well as they did to earn these contracts. That's got to be exciting as a GM and as a front office in general.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and take a look and a listen at some of the Winfield remarks from his press conference today. This first video, he's talking about manifesting his successful season, and that's something that he did 1 year ago today with the video that his girlfriend, now fiance, Tess took at a neighborhood park. And in that video, he talked about all of the things he wanted to accomplish, become an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber player, and also be the highest paid safety in the league. So he talked a little bit about that particular video and just the kind of the power of manifestation. It's something that he's been doing for a long time.
She was out there with me doing some extra work.
Where was that at?
It was at a park, like right down the street by my house. It was just at a park. I just went in. Yeah, in Tampa. And I was just out there just doing some extra work. And she picked up the camera and she was like, say something to the camera. And then I just started talking. And, those are goals that I had in my mind. And, now we're here today and I accomplished those.
Jason, did you know that?
And then right after that, Jason Light was asked about rewarding his own players and a little bit about that video. So here's what Jason Light had to say.
Well, I just told him and Tess to start filming how we're going to win Super Bowl.
Jason, you did extend Baker. You did give him a big deal, but the majority of guys you're giving these multi-year deals to year after year are guys that you developed, that you drafted. Is that key to being able to retain these guys? Like knowing that, hey, if you work hard enough, you can get to where Antoine is, and you can actually point to him and point to Mike and say, those are homegrown guys, you know, because a lot of times guys think they have to go somewhere else to get their big payday.
Well, that's our goal. First of all, we drafted and the coaches developed, and they did a great job, and they've done a great job with all of our young players. And say young, it's you know, Antoine's age, and 30 is young to me. So, but they've done a great job with that, and that's our goal. I mean, we're going to supplement the roster. I think I've said it from day one. I think every GM says it too in the initial press conference. You want to build the team through the draft and supplement here and there in free agency, but you want to reward your own. And I think we've proven that with the Glazer family, we will reward our own. So that's the goal.
Mission accomplished so far. Tristan Wirfs up next. The good news is for the Buccaneers is there's no deadline, right? He's playing that 5th-year option out. So this is something that if, you know, both sides don't come to the table just yet before summer break, they can continue these negotiations into training camp. We've seen at times where there, I think it was DeMar Dotson. I think 1 year it was either Gerald McCoy or Levante David. One of those guys got that August press conference during camp where they got their extension. So the great thing about Tristan Wirfs, you know, Bailey, is he doesn't care. He knows he's going to get paid. He knows this organization is going to take care of him. Glaziers, Mike Greenberg, Jason Light have in taking care of their own players. I think it puts a lot of these guys at ease. And I think that there's a real valuable lesson that Jason Light learned in drafting Devin White, who, you know, the first couple of years looked like a damn good pick, helped this team win a Super Bowl. You can't erase history. You can't take that away from Devin White, but he just kind of got consumed by that next deal and didn't finish the job at hand, which was play up to your ability, be consistent, improve, keep improving, and show us that you're worth the $20 million or whatever you're wanting. And if not, maybe 20 million, well, then let's kind of negotiate it. Maybe it's 15 or whatever. But as a result, that didn't happen. He didn't continue to get better like Winfield did, going from, you know, a very good start to his career, winning a Super Bowl as a rookie. I mean, think about it. Your very first game, you're going up against Drew Brees as a rookie in the COVID year in 2020 without the benefit of any preseason games that year, Bailey. Mm-hmm. And you go out there and you end up, you know, going up against Drew Brees in week 1 and then picking off Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So this guy has done it the right way, and that improvement has been there in this organization. That's the kind of player that they want to reward.
Yeah, and I think about it a lot, actually. Something that I think you said it might have been Mike Evans, or it might have even been talking about Tristan Wirfs in the past. But, you know, some of these guys being guys that the front office is happy to write these big checks to. You know, they have a lot of those players. And I think that speaks to the culture they've built and just kind of the way they've drafted. I think it kind of was some lessons that Jason Light learned, you know, throughout his early years of being a GM here in Tampa. But I also think it kind of came in when Bruce Arians and that regime came in 2019. The culture kind of shifted. Yeah. And, I mean, you've seen, obviously, Tom Brady came in, they started winning. But you just kind of see the character of some of these guys. And you have Tristan Wirfs, you have Antoine Winfield Jr., you have Mike Evans, who they've re-signed again. And it's a lot of these guys that they're just more than happy to get these deals done and you know, ink these guys and lock them in for future, because these guys are the core of their team, and not only the core of their team, but the core of their locker room.
Yeah. Charles Scott with a very good comment here. 2020, the second best draft in Bucs history. It really is. And a lot of times it's not so much what happens later in the draft. It's just, you know, do you hit on that first pick? Is because you're trying to draft a Pro Bowl or at any position with that first round pick. And Bailey, when you look at you know, the greatest draft of all time, it's the 1-2 punch that was Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks in the first round in 1995. It's my first year covering this team, as a matter of fact. I just celebrated my 29th anniversary of covering Buccaneer football. I think before I probably said it was 30 years. I'm really bad in math. That's Josh Cabo's territory, not me. One of my favorite songs is from the legendary Jimmy Buffett, Math Sucks. And we shared that in the group chat the other day. A laugh about that. But yeah, my 29 years in 1995, walked in the door with 2 Hall of Famers, unbeknownst to me. I thought they were just great college players, and you know, we'll see what happens. My first year covering this team, and boom, you know, all of a sudden they're in the Hall of Fame. And I think Jason Light has said it, Bailey. These guys, Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr., they have a Hall of Fame trajectory if they continue to play at this level.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And it's funny when you think about that draft class, it is those two guys at the top. And then it takes me a while to kind of remember. I know Keyshawn Vaughn, I think, was the 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
And
Eh,
you
it
kind of
didn't matter.
forget, and it doesn't really matter. It's just you have
Yeah.
2 Pro Bowlers and 2 All-Pro players that you got in the top 2 picks. And then
All the-
even if as you go further down, I mean, Tyler Johnson didn't pan out, long term for the Bucs, but he had
Right.
some huge catches and some huge moments in that postseason run as a rookie. So
Yeah.
there's different guys in that draft. But yeah, when you look at the top 2, I mean, that's hard to beat. And I think every GM in the league would take that with their
Yeah.
first 2 picks of every draft.
And that was during the COVID year too, as Jason and I pointed out. There's no top 30 visits that year. Everything was done via Zoom. I mean, we made it back from the combine just in time before the world shut down. And
Right.
there was, I think, maybe a couple of pro days, and that was it. So crazy times. Thankfully, we're past that. But man, for this personnel staff to pull those aces out of their sleeve in the first 2 rounds during the Zoom draft in 2020, that's saying something. So. You know what else is saying something? It's this little fun thing we do every Monday at 420 called Roll Call. Where are you at, Pewter people? I'm going to be letting Bailey opine on a little topic, doing our little Pewter Report rant today. And while he does that, I'm going to be putting up the locations of where you Pewter people are watching the show from today. So without further ado, Bailey, I think your topic today is the Bucs schedule. So I'm going to put that up right now. And we're going to let you kind of pick apart some of the interesting aspects of the Bucs schedule while I pull up the names of our Pewter people watching today's program.
Yeah, so I think anyone who reads pewterreport.com and has read any of the stuff leading up to the schedule release that I'd written about the schedule, I would call myself, I guess, a schedule nerd. It's one of my favorite days of the offseason is when the schedule comes out. You can start looking ahead, putting these dates on your calendar, looking at how things shake out. You obviously know the opponents ahead of time, but how the order shakes out, kickoff times, any primetime games. And so kind of looking through this, I know there's been some schedule talk on last Wednesday's show, last Thursday's show. But this is my first chance to get on the podcast and talk about this. So kind of going through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the schedule. I think, starting with the good, there's the late bye, which is not something the Bucs had the benefit of last year. They had a week 5 bye last year, I believe. It's week 11 this year. So they do play those 10 weeks and then have a bye week, kind of get some rest and kind of get some recovery in for that stretch run and trying to make the playoffs once again. I think also another good thing is where they catch the Falcons, at least the first time. The Falcons start the season with the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Saints. 4 pretty tough games for them before, they come back home and host the Bucs on Thursday Night Football in week 5. And then I think the season kind of closing on a pretty manageable stretch if you're the Bucs. You look at after the bye, they have a Giants team who I think is kind of just in flux. I don't know if they're going to be the best. They might be, it might give the Bucs a tough game, but that seems, a winnable game. You have 2 games against the Panthers, who I think are still in kind of a developmental mode under Dave Canales in his first year. You have the Raiders, who I just don't see much in this year. The Chargers, who knows how they'll be in year 1 under Jim Harbaugh. And then, some tougher games. It's the Saints and then at the Cowboys. But I think a manageable 12 through 18 stretch there for the Bucs as they close the season and try to make that playoff push. If we're looking at the bad, I think both Atlanta games being in October, I think just from a scheduling and from a hype standpoint, that's just, and I know you've talked about this on the show, is I don't understand that. Like you always see them, the NFL schedule late season divisional games, and to just completely omit the Falcons. The Falcons are this team. Okay, they signed Kirk Cousins, and it's the Falcons, are they going to be the team that overtakes the Bucs for the first time since 2019 in the division? And you put both of those games. I get the early primetime game. I get that, but to have another game just a few weeks later, I feel like it's a missed opportunity because you're missing out on the chance to have a high stakes matchup between the two teams, late in the season, whether that's December or even in week 18. It could have been for the division. So and then I think the last piece here of the bad, I think the back-to-back road games at LA and then at Dallas. I think even if LA is not very good, that's still a far West Coast road trip, and that sometimes has been a struggle for this franchise just historically. So having that in the middle of December and then coming back and playing, a tough Dallas team at Jerry World the next week, just before Christmas, that's, not an easy back-to-back stretch there. And then as far as the ugly of this schedule, it's really just that pre-bye stretch. And I don't even call it a stretch. It's a big chunk of the schedule, but it's, week 4 through week 10, where you have the Eagles at the Falcons, at the Saints, home against the Ravens and Falcons, at the Chiefs, who were back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and then home against the 49ers, who have beaten the Bucs twice in a row, or maybe is it 3 times in a row, dating back to 2019, and they just played in the Super Bowl last year. So having that stretch right before the bye is really just the ugly. I think Josh Capo had pointed this out in an article he did that did include a lot of math, as you mentioned earlier. And in those games, weeks 4 through 10, in this article, he pointed out that the Bucs aren't favored to win any of those games.
That's right.
It's a 7-game stretch where they're not favored to win a single game. So really tough there. But I think on the whole, it's almost well balanced when you say weeks 4 through 10 are extremely tough. 12 through 18 are more manageable. I mean, that's a big chunk of the schedule right there.
Yeah.
So overall, I think a schedule that the Bucs can navigate through, and as long as you don't fall into a serious hole early on with that tough 7-game stretch, I think they'll be in a really good spot coming out of the bye to make some noise and make the playoffs again and extend their streak, their NFC best playoff streak.
Yeah, well, looking at this and processing what you just said, one thing is pretty clear to me. This team better get on the Celsius train, right? Because they're going to need some energy, especially for some of those early hot games at Ray J. 3 out of the first 4 are going to be in the sweltering heat at Raymond James Stadium in September. Then you've got that stretch of games where they're going to have to just power up and energy up. It's the toughest part of the schedule. So listen, when you're needing to power up, get energized with Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. They've got some tremendous flavors. The vibe flavors have just exploded, people. The Astro vibe, the Cosmic vibe, the Galaxy vibe that you mentioned there, plus the old school vibes. The Arctic vibe, which I had this morning for breakfast, was amazing. Peach vibe, tropical vibe. So many amazing flavors of Celsius. And what we encourage you to do is go to Amazon and use the subscribe and save. Get some of those cases sent to your residence, and you can save some money by doing so. The other thing that you can do, Bailey, is you can go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator if you just want to try a couple of Celsius, or, like we've been on vacation / work trips before, whether it's Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, or whether it's the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. And we want to grab a Celsius. Go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, and that way you can find them at some of your local grocery stores, health and fitness stores, or maybe your bodega. That's right, your bodega. Good job, Bailey. So if you want to get Celsius sent to your house, or whether you want to grab a can, those are the ways to do it. The only thing we ask you to do is just energize every day with Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. Well, we've got an energized schedule here for you, Pewter people, that's for sure, because we've already talked about the fact that today we're talking Antoine Winfield. We'll get to more of that in just a minute. But tomorrow's show, myself and Adam Slavan are going to be on talking about the Bucs OTA practice. They started today, but you've got the first OTA that's open to the media tomorrow. So we'll be here live at 4 o'clock, breaking down all the action, probably showing you guys some video from practice as well. Then on Wednesday's show at 4 o'clock, myself and special guest Mara Carey, we're going to be talking about, are the Bucs the best Florida team? She covers not just the Buccaneers, but also the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars for golflive.com. So she covers all 3, just like Greg Allman does in the NFC South, but she covers the state of Florida in terms of the football teams. So we're going to be talking about, are the Bucs the best team in Florida? Did they run the Sunshine State? We'll find out on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Then a special treat on Thursday. Bucs general manager Jason Light will be joining us live at 4 o'clock. So make sure you don't miss that. Then in a couple of weeks on June 6th, we've got special guest Bucs assistant general manager Mike Greenberg joining the program. So an action-packed week is on tap. And then we've got Mike Greenberg in just a couple of weeks. So, and in between then, Bailey, we've got more Bucs OTA coverage to talk about, in addition to the Bucs minicamp that's coming up. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think you kind of get the taste of it, throughout OTAs, throughout minicamp. You get that taste of training camp, and then you got the long wait until training camp. But once we get to camp, and then before you know it, it'll be preseason, and we'll get to the regular season sooner or later. Yeah,
exactly. Joel Elrican talking about drinking an Astro vibe right now. We always appreciate our Pewter people for joining us on every show. And if you haven't had the opportunity to catch us on the live show, if you're listening or watching one of our podcast versions archived, do what you can. Try to join the live show. It's always fun. We always like to read the comments, and especially with roll call, we always like to hear and find out where the Pewter people are watching the show from. We'll get to that in a second. But the biggest thing is we got over 14,000 thanks to you, awesome Pewter people. If you can like the videos, whether it's my Pewter Pulse videos, the practice clips that we put up on our Pewter Report TV channel on YouTube, or the Pewter Report podcast, give us a like. The more likes we get, the more comments we get. So leave a comment, even if it's just great show, guys, or awesome topic, or if you have a question, we'll go in and answer it. But if you leave those comments as well as the likes, it helps our YouTube algorithm, helps us get in front of more awesome Pewter people like you. Speaking of awesome Pewter people, Bill Vincent from Redneck Riviera. Now, it's my understanding Redneck Riviera is Lake of the Ozarks. At least that's what I believe is the Redneck Riviera. I will be at the Lake of the Ozarks in July, Bailey. It's one of my vacation spots. My old college roommates, Chris and Mike. Chris has got a lake house down there, and we always go there every summer. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's what they call the Lake of the Ozarks. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill. If you've got a different Redneck Riviera you're talking about, let me know. But we always appreciate our international Pewter people. Felix Schmidt today from Edmonton, Canada, watching. Joel Rican from Mulberry, Florida. They're just around the corner. Money Making Mitch, ATL, baby. Go Bucks. We appreciate that. Washington, D.C. I was born just outside of D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia back in the day. Jack Carrico says, Washington, D.C., I will get to watch the first game of the season on local D.C. TV. That's right. They're playing the Washington Commanders in week 1. Christopher Oxentine, loyal viewer of the show, Overland Park, Kansas. That is my stomping grounds. I grew up in Overland Park, spent a lot of years there. Just celebrated my 30th anniversary from graduating from UCF. Charge on, Bailey. There you go. So
I just celebrated. I don't want to make anybody feel old. I just celebrated my 5th year of graduation from UCF.
Congratulations, young grasshopper.
I can't believe I've actually been out of college for 5 years, but there is that.
That's something, man. I can't remember 5 years ago, so that just shows you how old I am. Shaggy, stuck in the middle of Illinois. We appreciate you, Shaggy, as always. And Arnoud Oltmans, Bentveld, the Netherlands, which is awesome. And then another international loyal subscriber / viewer, Kieran Butt from Norwich, UK. So we really appreciate all of our Pewter people today from chiming in around the nation. And let's see here. We've got a couple others here. Let's just get them up. Paul Bowen from Prattville, Alabama. We appreciate that. Bill Vincent from the Gulf Coast. Okay, so Bill's talking about the Redneck Riviera being the Gulf Coast of Florida. That's not the Redneck Riviera to me. That's Lake of the Ozarks for sure, which is like a little redneck, but it's always fun. Shane Lambert working with the Celsius lemon lime. That's a hell of a flavor. You've got Darius Miller from Rochester, New York, and Larry Fisherman from Ohio. Got another late one here, which is Buck Daddy from Fayetteville, Georgia, suburb of Atlanta. Hate the Falcons. That's always great to hear. And last but not least, Trustin Vorbeck, a longtime viewer and listener from Nashville, Tennessee. Great city, Nashville. Anytime the Bucks want to play the Titans again in the preseason and do a joint practice up there, we had so much fun a couple of years ago on that trip. Myself, Josh Capo, Cliff Welch from our photographer went up there, and we had a great time. So Rick's always
still never been.
Oh, you got to go to Nashville. It's fantastic. If you had as much money as Antoine Winfield Jr., you can go to Nashville or anywhere you want because it's super cheap when you have all that money. Let's talk a little bit. Well, yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit more about what Antoine Winfield Jr., the man of the hour, had to say. We talked about Jason Light rewarding his own players and feeling good about that, and also kind of the manifesting of winning a Super Bowl now. That's kind of the next manifestation that Antoine Winfield Jr. wants to see come to fruition. This is more of what he said about that, as well as a question from yours truly about reuniting with Jordan Whitehead in the secondary.
New goal, Super Bowl. I want another Super Bowl. That was also a goal that I said in there too. So Super Bowl 2, and then go from there. That's the plan for right now.
And Antoine, this is obviously a sweet day for you, but this is going to be a sweet season for you playing against Jordan Whitehead again. Just talk about your level of excitement of pairing with him again in secondary.
Oh, very excited. When I came in my rookie year, I played with him for a few years, and I was really leaning on him when I first got here. And for him to be back, we had great chemistry when he was here, and so we're just trying to build on that and improve that. But we're both a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, and have more experience under our belts. So, I can't wait to work with him and just go out there and ball.
And Jason, obviously,
one of the things that we kind of talked about before the show started is, there's two distinct groups of players. We talked about the Hall of Famers, right? Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp. Well, then there's also John Lynch, right? Rondé Barber. And they all had one thing in common. They were part of that Super Bowl season in 2002. Then I think you're going to see the next generation of Hall of Fame Buccaneer players, starting with Mike Evans, right? He won a Super Bowl in 2020, Super Bowl 55. And a couple players were on that Super Bowl / Hall of Fame trajectory that will perhaps join Mike Evans. And we're talking about Tristan Wirfs, of course, and Antoine Winfield Jr. But the interesting thing is, and we'll see if they can get there before Mike Evans has a chance to retire. But man, if Winfield and Wirfs, if they're part of another Super Bowl team, I mean, I take nothing away from the original OG Bucks, right? I mean, they always have a near and dear place in my heart for winning the first Super Bowl in 2002. But the only one won. And if Winfield, Wirfs can be a part of a two-time Super Bowl champion team, I mean, what does it do for their place in Bucs history? We've already talked about, the mythical Mount Rushmore, right? And it's probably considering, Leroy Selman, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, that's probably the four right now. But Bailey, if this group ends up getting into the Hall of Fame and they end up winning a second Super Bowl, I mean, it just takes it to a whole new level, doesn't it?
It does, and it's funny that you mentioned the Mount Rushmore, and I think how difficult it is to narrow it down to four guys. And most of my childhood, it wasn't that difficult. Right. I grew up in Tampa and grew up watching this team and thinking it was always those four guys for the longest time. But now in this latest wave, in this latest run of Bucs success, there's been some guys that will push for that. I think Mike Evans has already made a case to be on that as the best offensive player in Bucs history. So but if they can get to
probably, at least from my standpoint, you tell me, probably pushing Leroy Selman off the list, as almost as sacrilegious as that sounds. But he's a Super Bowl champion, and so was Barber, and so was Brooks, and so was Sapp, and that's the one big missing ingredient now. All of a sudden, Leroy Selman doesn't have.
It is. It feels sacrilegious. It almost feels like wrong to do that, but I get the point. It's one of those things because he is, the original Buccaneer. He's the first, the first legend of the team. He's my dad's favorite player growing up, and it does feel that way though. When you look at the I don't know if you want to call it just down to boil it down to just that criteria, but I mean you've got Mike Evans who won a Super Bowl, and then some of these guys, and I look at a lot of the guys on this team. And I've written about this, I think, for Pewter Report a couple times. Is there are several future Ring of Honor members on this team as it is right now. I think some of those guys that were on the Super Bowl team, and whether that's was year one like Winfield, like Wirfs, or if that was whatever it was, year 7, I think it was for Mike Evans. There are a few guys, and obviously Levante David's another one who will be in the Ring of Honor probably almost the day he retires. Right. But it's just kind of crazy to think that if this, if some of this collection of these guys get to another Super Bowl, if Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. are, on the younger side and can get to another Super Bowl and win it before their careers are over, it would just transform, I think, a lot of the way we view this franchise. Because right now there was the first Super Bowl era, there was the second Super Bowl era, and they've been to the playoffs every year since the Super Bowl, but they haven't gotten that close again. I'd say obviously the 2021 season with the Rams game was the closest, and then you could argue if they were healthier, they win the Super Bowl again that year, and then you're already talking about back to back and a completely different landscape of this franchise. But if they can get to another one, it would change a lot of things.
It would. If Tristan Wirfs plays in that Rams game instead of a hobbled Josh Wells, because remember, he got hurt too. Yeah. He was playing on a bad wheel. If he's there and then you give Tom Brady either Antonio Brown, who famously said peace out towards the end of the season in that Jets game, if you give him Brown, or Chris Godwin, who had that horrific knee injury against the Saints late in December, you give him one of those guys, along with Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski against the Rams, I think it's a completely different game. I think the Buccaneers beat the Rams I think they go to the Super Bowl. I think they handle Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and I think they're back-to-back Super Bowl champions. I really do.
Give Brady Cyril Grayson in that game. I think it was in Cyril Grayson who kind of like he kind of showed up down the stretch when he had to. And I think wasn't it him that missed that Rams game as well, because I think he got nicked up. It was either him or Rashad Perriman, I think.
Yeah.
It was down to really just the bare bones by the end of it. Any of those guys, I think, the Bucs are pushing for, because they would have played at home in the NFC Championship.
That's right.
And then it's a big miss. It's like one of those big what ifs in Bucs history.
Yeah, I mean, it's really one of the worst losses in Bucs history. And Winfield, unfortunately, was kind of like put in no man's land on that zero blitz. Didn't even get the call until the last second. He's processing what to do as Cooper Kupp's running by him. But I think he's forgotten about that now. He's got 84 million reasons to forget that and look forward to winning another Super Bowl, not dwelling on the past. The great thing about one of our advertising partners, the Tampa Bay Bucks cruise, which we're going to be on next March. It's going to be a really good time. Tristan Wirfs was on the first cruise 2 years ago and had a blast. Now, he was a little busy this time, the second go around, as he was waiting to become a father, so you had to give him a pass. But I got a funny feeling he's going to be on next year's cruise because he had such a good time. We'll see if Antoine Winfield Jr. can get on the cruise now too. But folks, if you have not signed up for the Tampa Bay Bucks cruise for 2025, don't miss out. Reserve your cabin today.
We're on the Bucks cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucks cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey!
Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucks cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucks cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr! Arr!
Folks, that's going to be a blast. You got to reserve your cabin now for the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucks cruise. It's the official Bucks cruise, so join the fun with hundreds of Bucks fans and the Pewter Report staff on the third annual Tampa Bay Bucks cruise, which sets sail March 7th through 10th in 2025. The beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. 3-night cruise begins in Fort Lauderdale and visits Key West and the Bimini, Bahamas. Last year's cruise had Yaya Diaby, Rashad White, Luke Gedeke, Kate Otten, Jamel Dean, Super Bowl 37 MVP Dexter Jackson, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, Gene Deckerhoff, and others. Even more players are expected this year. Bailey, they went from like 5 or 6 players the first year to like 16 last year. So huge jump. Word is spreading. More players expected. They've already locked in a special appearance by none other than Hall of Famer Mr. Derek Brooks. There will be photograph and autograph opportunities with the players, Raise the Flags sail away party, VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, a water volleyball challenge, Bucks trivia contests, and fun games, and more. So reserve your cabin now on the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucks cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips are all included with a $200 deposit per person. That's all you have to do. They've got a select number of single cabins available. Those go fast. Most rooms are double occupancy. All it takes is a $200 deposit per person, and that's refundable until August 16th. So lock in your room today. Visit TampaBayBucksCruise.com. That's TampaBayBucksCruise.com, or give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. So that looks like it's going to be a blast for sure. And it's going to be fun tomorrow as we take a look at some of these Bucks players for the first time. And get another look at Liam Cohen coaching out there and watching the Bucks OTAs for the first time. So we're going to really get a chance to see the full gambit now. You'll see the rookies, the veterans, everybody out there together, Bailey. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow at 4 o'clock with our Bucks OTA analysis show.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think getting out there again and even being out there for rookie camp was a nice little taste of football, and we'll get some more, throughout the coming weeks. One more thing on that Bucks cruise, I think I have to say, I might have to petition here for us to get some like floral PR Pewter Report shirts for that cruise. We got to get some Hawaiian shirts going the Crews. I'm creating work for someone and creating a financial deposit or financial thing there.
I'm here for it. I'm gonna approve that, Bailey. That sounds like a hell of an idea. So it beats our black Pewter Report polos, right? That's one thing to walk around the facility, watch them practice in these, but yeah, to be on a cruise, probably need a little floral content for sure. Speaking of content, let's get a little bit more of what Antoine Winfield Jr. had to say today, as he talked about the motivation for what's next, right? He talked about leveling up and becoming a better player. And, I've seen a lot of Buccaneer players that they get that big money contract and they kind of settle. They kind of get into fat cat syndrome. Thankfully, not in recent years with Jason Licht. He's picked so many good players, not just good players, but also good people that have that intrinsic motivation to earn every penny. And I think one of the things that Winfield said that his coach, Nick Rapone, the safeties coach, said was, out of someone, with much is expected, right? When you get paid like that. So it's only, I think it's within him to want to earn every penny and be motivated by that. Let's listen to what Antoine Winfield Jr. had to say.
Like 10 times as much as you did the last 4 years. How do you keep that fire and that motivation now that you got to this place financially?
Yeah, I'm the type of person, I'm never satisfied. I always like my goal every season is to do better than I was the previous season. And like Coach Rapone always says, too much is given, much is expected. And I know that coming in, I'm just going to be better than I was before. I'm going to train harder than I was before. And something that's also big for me is just learning something new every single day. Because, there's so much to learn in the sport, so many ways that I can improve my game. And so, I'm just excited to, be given the opportunity here in Tampa. And, I still got that fire in me, and I don't see it going away at any time. I'm still going to be out here doing extra work and doing things like that. So I'm just excited to be here.
When you went to sign the contract, you saw $84 million. What kind of flashed through your mind?
Oh, well, it's coming up soon right after this, but it's going to be crazy. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's going to be a nice feeling.
What are the new goals now that?
Bailey, let me ask you, right? We talked about that stat line at the beginning of the show: 122 tackles, 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions. Those are some Herculean numbers, right? I mean, even Rondé Barber had a 10 interception season, but he was never able to duplicate that. If he has, say, 100 tackles rather than 122, and 4 sacks rather than 6, and forces 3 fumbles rather than 6, and he recovers 2 or 3 fumbles rather than 4. You catch where I'm going with this? If he has, 2 or 3 interceptions, but not 4 or 5, right? He wants to get 10 interceptions. That's a goal of his. But you really can't say that even if he takes a slight step back statistically, that he's had a down year or an off year, right, in 2024. And I'm not suggesting he's going to. I mean, he could have an even better statistical year. I'm not going to rule that out for Antoine Winfield Jr., but there is a little bit of dose of reality that says, like, you can't have a Superman year every year, can you?
You wouldn't think so. I think there's, it's a natural thing that if he dips down a little bit in this year and maybe it's next year, whenever it is. But I think the value that he has in his defense, I think, is why the Bucs were so comfortable with giving him this money and giving him such a big contract. And I think part of it was maybe paying for some of the production they already got. It was some of kind of a reward of, hey, this is what you've done on your rookie contract. Here's some of this money. And then, hey, now why don't you go keep doing that with this money? But I think, something along those lines, it doesn't always have to be, like you said, a league leading 6 forced fumbles or 6 sacks, whatever it is. I mean, if he has a 10 interception season, I think, that'd be pretty insane. I think it's quite a lofty goal, but I think what it comes down to is if those numbers dip a little bit, then the onus it can't all be on him. I think the onus has to be on the rest of the secondary to kind of fill in and say, hey, we're going to get more interceptions. We're going to not just get our hands on passes, but actually pick them off and, force more fumbles and, get after the quarterback when our numbers are called on blitzes. And I think having Jordan Whitehead next to him, I think will help that, maybe kind of almost allow him to play. I don't know if he can play more free, but I think just, I think that's a huge help. The fact that he had the season he did last year, a Superman type season, when didn't really have much next to him in terms of Ryan Neal kind of really struggling when he came in. Having Jordan Whitehead next to him, I think, is going to be a huge help. And if he can take even a further step with Whitehead next to him, I don't even know what the numbers are going to look like.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing too. The way that Winfield can really impact the secondary and also impact this team next year is to really um, help other players become great players. And I mentioned earlier Rondé Barber. He had 10 interceptions in 2001 and only had a couple the next year. Remember, after he picked off Donovan McNabb with that 92-yard pick six to send the Bucks into the Super Bowl, he was famous for saying on the sidelines, "Pro Bowl my ass, I'm going to the Super Bowl," And I think that's the important thing. And Brian Kelly had 8 interceptions to lead the NFC that season, right? So teams were staying away from Barber and giving his teammates other opportunities. And I think that might be the next step for Winfield. Is he may not have those Superman numbers in all those categories this year, but because he is going to be such a marked man and offensive coordinators and quarterbacks having to really game plan around him, I think it's going to create a lot of opportunities for other players in the secondary and this defense. They just got to cash in. You can't be like Jamel Dean and drop those picks when you have the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of interesting. And I don't know that he completely flew under the radar before. I know that the Pro Bowl snub, I think, is evidence that maybe he was. But I think opposing teams obviously knew who he was, knew what he was capable of. But now there's just that extra, sense of he's the highest paid defensive back in the league. And we really have to be aware of that guy. And we really have to maybe, game plan around him, take him out of it and target other guys and see what we can do elsewhere away from him. And like you said, if that's the case, these other guys around him are going to have to step up and make those plays because, he'll be impacting the game by simply taking away, whether that part of the field or a certain receiver, whatever it is. But the other guys, they'll try to win in other ways. And those other guys are going to have to step up.
As Shaggy says, rising tide raises all boats, and that's very well said. Here's the last little clip of what Winfield had to say that we'll play for you now. And this one's kind of interesting. He was asked about his dad, and he mentioned his dad, Antoine Winfield Sr., who was a 14-year cornerback in the NFL, playing mostly for the Minnesota Vikings, but also I think ended his career with the New England Patriots, playing alongside Tom Brady, if my memory serves me correctly. But Winfield had the opportunity at a very young age to watch film with his dad, and it certainly rubbed off. And he became a student of the game at a very, very early age. Talked about it twice. This is the second clip where he's talking about his dad watching some film about how to stop Calvin Johnson. This is what Antoine had to say.
The most is when he played against, I think it was Detroit, and I remember he had the little DVD player and a little CD, and he was just sitting up. He had to just sit up in his bed, and I remember going up asking like what he was doing, and he was just, I got Calvin Johnson this week, so we're trying to figure out how to stop him. And then he was just going over like what he was supposed to do in certain plays and how he was supposed to shut him down. So that's one of the earlier memories that I have.
He stuck with you?
Yeah, 100%.
How old were you probably about when he was getting ready to play Calvin? I'm trying to...
That time I was probably 8 or 9.
So the greatness started at an early age. Getting to watch his dad, who had a tremendous career in the NFL, and the apple did not fall far from the tree for sure.
Yeah, what's funny is it doesn't when you think about it, it wasn't that long ago when Antoine Winfield Sr. was playing, and to hear him say he had that little DVD player set up watching his film. Now I'm sure all the players watching him on their Microsoft Surfaces or iPads or whatever they are. How quickly things have changed in terms of just the technology and just from father to son. But yeah, that one of those things that he talked about was kind of just learning that discipline early on. I know there's another story where he had said, he looked outside and he saw his dad doing a ladder drill outside. Mm-hmm. He was like, I want to go out there. And he's like, I don't even know what I was really doing, but I think he said he was like 6 or 7 at that point. Yeah. And he was out there running the ladder drill at that young of an age. So I know that, like you said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in this situation at all.
He certainly got his love of football from his father, and that's important. Folks, when it comes to loving healthcare and looking out for their patients, nobody does it better than Christopher Lugo. That's right. He is my personal physician, and I highly recommend him for a multitude of reasons, whether it's primary care or, as he helps with me, is testosterone treatment. So if you're tired of feeling like just another number in the waiting room, well, at the Bay Area Modern Medical Center in Tampa, they believe that you deserve the personalized care that puts your health and well-being first. Meet Christopher Lugo, PA, with over 24 years of medical expertise as a primary care provider. He's dedicated to your overall health, but that's not all. Christopher specializes in weight loss, anti-aging, and hormone replacement therapy, including testosterone treatments for both men and women. So men, listen up. Testosterone treatments can be affordable. Don't let age slow you down. Reclaim your vitality and get back to feeling great. Turn back the clock with a consultation at the Bay Area Modern Medical Center today. Visit BAMMC.com to explore the range of testosterone and weight loss treatments. Here's the difference. Christopher practices concierge medicine. What that means is no more waiting rooms, no rushing through appointments. Imagine the doctor who takes the time to go over your extensive lab results, discuss your diet and exercise plan, and provides personalized vitamin and supplement recommendations to optimize your health. Same-day appointments are also available for your convenience. As I said, I am a patient of Christopher Lugo, and I'm recommending Bay Area Modern Medical Center for you as well. Ready to experience healthcare that revolves around you? Book your appointment today at BAMMC.com or give them a call at 844-789-2266. It's Bay Area Modern Medical Center, where your health is the priority. Bailey, we've got an action-packed week coming up. We already talked about tomorrow's show is going to be the Bucs OTA practice analysis on Wednesday. Mara Carey from golflive.com is going to be my guest, and we're going to talk about the Bucs possibly running the state. That's right. Are the Bucs the best team in Florida? Well, the Dolphins and Jaguar fans might have something to say about that, but we'll settle this once and for all on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, special guest Bucs general manager Jason Light is going to be on the program. So a very action-packed week as OTAs begin. And then just a couple of weeks on June 6th on Thursday, special assistant Bucs special guest Bucs assistant general manager Mike Greenberg joins the show. So a lot of super Bucs talk coming up as this offseason rolls along.
Yeah, exciting times. I'm really excited to just hear what Jason Light has to say on Thursday. And of course, I believe you said on last week's show that Mike Greenberg was making his podcast debut. So
yeah,
excited to see what's come from
I think he actually was on Schefter's podcast, but he's going to give us more time than he gave Schefter. And I think this will be the first local Bucs-centric podcast that he does. So
got it. Looking
very
forward
interesting to hear what the wizard over there at One Buccaneer Place, the Cap Jedi, as I call him, Mike Greenberg, has to say. And we'd love to hear what you have to say about our video. So make sure you leave a comment and make sure you hit the like button. That helps us out on our YouTube algorithm. And make sure you're visiting for the best Bucs coverage. Pewter Report TV, that's our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to that. We're over 14,000 subscribers because of you awesome Pewter people. Make sure you're following us on social media, X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report, where we're going to have a bunch of content coming out tomorrow on social media live from the Bucs OTA practice. And then full recaps on everything, including a new Pewter Report roundtable tomorrow on pewterreport.com. So make sure you stay locked into all of our social media channels, Pewter Report TV on YouTube, as well as the mothership, Pewter Report. Bailey, it's fun doing the show with you. Can't wait to watch some practice with you tomorrow, as we're going to get a look at Vita Vea, Cody Malk, and some of those guys that maybe have transformed their body a little bit. So it should be a very fun day out there before the summer heat kicks in. It's supposed to be a little warm, but hopefully it's not going to be as brutal as it can be in Florida.
Yeah, I got to actually remember to pack my sunscreen this time. You saved the day on at rookie minicamp, and I still felt the heat that day, but I think I was a little protected from that sunscreen. So got to pack the sunscreen tomorrow.
Well, we really appreciate all you Pewter people joining us for today. For Bailey Adams, I'm Scott Reynolds, saying we're going to be seeing you guys tomorrow at 4 o'clock as we talk Bucs OTA here on the Pewter Report podcast. Out.